So tonight's film was Sam Pollard's documentary about Sammy Davis Jr., Sammy Davis Jr., I've Gotta Be Me, which premiered at Toronto last year and has played a handful of film festivals. Um, and I believe airs later this year on PBS's American Masters. I've seen several of these American Masters docs before they've landed on PBS out in theaters. If you and I gotta say, as much as I love PBS, there's something about watching these movies on the big screen that is so much better than watching them on TV. I know that's a privilege, and I'm glad that I have that privilege to get to see these films. This particular film I saw as the opening night film at the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival, which obviously tonight is the opening night. The Atlanta Jewish Film Festival is over 23 days here at the end of January through the beginning of February in Atlanta over 7 different venues. It is a massive, massive venue festival. I only went to one screening last year. I'm hoping to go to some more this year. I'm actually going to introduce a few on Saturday, so try to find me if you're in Atlanta. Say hello. I'm not scary, I promise. But anyways, back to Sammy Davis Jr., I've Gotta Be Me. So I believe the first time I ever saw Sammy Davis Jr. in a movie or in anything, I'm double checking it. I should have checked this before I started talking, but I'm pretty sure it was in, this is not loading. There we go. I'm pretty sure it was in the movie Moon Over Parador. Yes, indeed it was. Okay, good. 1988, Moon Over Parador. It was one of the last things he ever did. He's in the film towards the end. And he's not even listed on IMDb as being in it. Okay, he was totally in it. I'm not making this up, I promise. Okay. So this is a way of me saying I didn't know much about Sammy Davis Jr. And then growing up, mostly, we weren't really a Rat Pack family. My mom was really into Nat King Cole, and for some reason it was like Nat King Cole or the Rat Pack. I don't know. So I listened to a lot of Nat King Cole growing up, and not much Sinatra even, let alone Dean Martin or Sammy Davis Jr. And as I got older, I added Sinatra and I added Dean Martin, but I never really listened to Sammy Davis Jr., nor did I see any of his television premieres or any of this stuff he's really well known for. I didn't know any of it. I only really knew that, the pictures, and I saw, Ocean's 11, and that's about it for me and Sammy Davis Jr. So watching this documentary was wonderful because, one, I learned a lot about him as the breadth of performance that he did, as well as just some of the things that I think I had thought were true about him that were misconceptions. And I know, towards the end of his career, he kind of, in some circles, became a bit of a caricature almost. And to get to really see the true talent, I think, was wonderful. I actually just last week saw Anna Lucasta, which was his first film, and he was so good in that. And I haven't seen Porgy and Bess yet, but I can't wait to see that one. But it's done. It's not done linearly. It's done in sort of the different facets of his career. So they show his sort of youth career and how he became famous, and then they break down his different talents from singing, dancing, impersonations. Which, holy crap, he's probably the best Humphrey Bogart impersonator of all time. Wow. And then they go through sort of him as an activist, and him as a rebel, and his as a fashionista, and all kinds of things. And it was really delightful to see so much of his life. And then, obviously, this is at the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival, so there's a section in the film about how he came to Judaism, what it meant to him, and why he converted, which happened right around when he got in the car accident and lost his eye. There was something else. They mentioned his very first film was actually a Vitaphone short when he was 5. And he steals the show from Ethel Waters, of all people, in 1933? Yeah, he was in these 2 Vitaphone shorts in 1933. That's crazy. just crazy. So I kind of have been looking at like the rethinking about the like some of the lists, like the AFI greatest legends lists and some of those recently, and thinking about how biased they are because they're based on looking at a history of time that was very exclusionary, and also looking at an impact on a certain factor of America, and not, somebody like Sammy Davis Jr. was huge. And in terms of the way that list was created, his body of work was done. He could have been included. Someone like him wasn't included. The only black performer on that whole list, I think, is Sidney Poitier. And I love Sidney Poitier. He should be on the list. But, like, if you look at the impact of someone like Sammy Davis Jr. or Harry Belafonte or Louise Beavers, or some of the people who weren't on that list, in terms of the impact they had on the black community, it's preposterous that they weren't included as a legend. That's not really here or there, but it was a thought I had while watching this documentary, so I'm just adding it. There are some factors of the documentary that are lacking, in that he was married several times, and they don't talk to any of the wives that are alive, and they only really focus kind of on the marriage he had to have in order to not die, because he was dating Kim Novak, which is a fascinating story. Read that. Although they did talk to Kim Novak, but they focused a little bit on his wife that he had 3 kids with, but the whole rest of his sort of life with women is not really explored. And the director was at a Q&A afterwards and explained that, like, he tried, and sometimes you just can't get family to come and talk, and that's understandable. So then you can't tell a story. But what else was I going to say? I just thought it was a very well put together documentary, in that it showed both his talent and his sort of really raw look at his makeup as a person. It didn't delve like into some of his, alcoholism or drug problems, although it did touch on that. But just the sort of sensitive kind of person he was, and there was some great revealing television interviews that they showed, and some great audio clips that I thought were really illustrated what kind of man Sammy Davis Jr. was, or at least that he tried to be. I also had never really thought of him as, when we talk about like groundbreaking entertainers, we the conversation, especially in film, is often focused on Sidney Poitier and the things that he did. But I never really thought, and then, to some extent, Dorothy Dandridge, but Sammy Davis Jr. was coming of age at the same time, and becoming famous at the same time, and going through the same sort of horrible issues, including he was in the Army, and he was in one of the earliest integrated units, and apparently that was hell. And they have him talking about that, and that was fascinating, and sort of explains a bit why the film delves into like why it is he went and entertained troops in Vietnam, even though Vietnam was this very unpopular war. They also talk about why he supported Nixon, and several other things. And I guess I liked that it showed that he wasn't a perfect person, and that sometimes he did things without really thinking what it would mean, because he didn't think of his actions that way. He thought of like, what does this mean to me, not what will this look like to other people. And I think that's something most people, especially celebrities, don't often do. So I kind of found that endearing. There's some wonderful looking at sort of how his career became what it was in the 70s, how he sort of just wasn't, like, Sinatra could keep singing Sinatra-type songs. It was fine. But Sammy Davis Jr., being a black musician, like, there weren't a lot of people singing, like, Rat Packy songs anymore. And he never really was much of a rock and roll singer or a soul singer or any of the things that were sort of in vogue for a performer of color. And yet, so he's trying to come with the times, and he sings songs that aren't really what anybody is expecting in 1970s. But his version of Wichita Lineman is like fantastic, and I can't believe I'd never heard it before. I love it so much. My life has now changed for the better. Mostly, I found this documentary really beautiful. It made me laugh. It made me cry. I learned a lot, both about him and about the history of the country. I think every time you see, especially lives that start in one facet of our country and went through things like the, the civil rights era and other changes that happened in his lifetime, you learn not just about the person, but about society. And that was great. Oh, the last thing I wanted to say, I didn't know that he premiered on Broadway and was in Golden Boy and the musical, and how that was the first time on Broadway that there was an interracial kiss. I knew nothing of that. I thought that was just really fantastic. And they had his co-star from that Broadway show interviewed, and she was fantastic. I want to know more about her, actually. So anyways, I thought this was a great documentary. If you can catch it, it's playing festivals right now, and it'll be on PBS. If you can't see it on the big screen, I feel sorry because it's lovely on the big screen, but definitely catch it when it hits PBS. I really enjoyed it. This is Sam Pollard's Sammy Davis Jr., I Gotta Be Me. I thought it was quite good.